All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. If you had a chance to take a look at the promo, you'll know that we have a terrific show on tap for you guys. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you know, a couple of weeks ago, we did have Awesome Con that was here in town, here in DC, for its 11th show. And if you're not familiar with Awesome Con, of course, it is the pop culture show that sees, more than 70,000 people make it over to the nation's capital, to our convention center, to enjoy all elements of pop culture, whether it's film, television, video games, comics, and the like. And just as you would have with any convention, we also have terrific guests that are also there on hand at the show that, all of us are, fans of, from, any facet of pop culture that they, provide their talents to. So without further ado, let us get into our said guests. So give me one moment. So yes, the guest that we have today was born in Arlington, Virginia, and is an acting student of the late George Robert Allen, starting his career as a comedian with stand-up, with improvisation and sketch comedy. He has worked in radio, in TV, film, and video games. Aside from his credits as an actor, most recently, he was, of course, seen in the film known as Last Night at Terrace Lanes. However, he's perhaps most widely recognized for his voice and talents on many video games, such as the Elder Scrolls series, the Fallout series, and Star Trek Legacy for Bethesda Softworks. If that weren't enough, our guest was the last PA announcer for the Washington Bullets, the first PA announcer for the Washington Wizards, and has been the PA announcer of the Washington Capitals since 2000. So more than it's crazy to think about, but nearly a quarter of a century. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show, I should say, Wes Johnson. Let me bring him on now.
Hello there. How you doing, Brendan?
What's going on, Wes? Let me see if I can get us up here. We're having a little bit of a technical issue here. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. But yes, Wes, welcome. I know it's been a couple of weeks since AwesomeCon, but it's been a little bit since you have last been here on the show. As I said, with Last
Yeah,
Night at Terrence Lanes. How have you been, man?
been doing great. We just finished filming the Farragut Forward Star Trek film last night. Uh, Drove several hours away to do that. Either I cut Mike Tyson off in traffic, which is why I have bruises on my face, or I had Klingon makeup on. I just came directly from there, so there may still be some elements around my ears and neck. Sorry about that. And I also face planted the other day right in the middle of the dirt road out there in our alien landscape, which was, very fun. There it is. That is Dr. Valal, the Klingon doctor, who is the scientist who basically controls the uh, the cybernetics of the bad guy, whose name is Prescott, is a mirror universe double of a character from past Farragut Starship Farragut films, and he is eh, let's just say he's more into honor than Prescott is. We had a wonderful time filming that, and talked to a lot of the folks who came out to AwesomeCon. Saw the pictures of Valal there, and were very interested. I've played many Klingon characters in the video games, Legacy, and there was another one, a couple others that I did, and even I had some scenes with Patrick Stewart where I was battling Jean-Luc Picard as the Klingon admiral. I've actually done two games with Patrick Stewart. One was Star Trek Legacy, where I had scenes with him, and then I had scenes with him in Oblivion as well. I was one of the guards that led his emperor. out of seclusion and ends up letting him get killed. So sorry about that, Sir Pat. But I never had a chance to work with him directly because when you're working in video games, you're in a booth by yourself. Yeah, very rarely do you find yourself in a situation where it's like with the Farragut films, the Star Trek film we were working on the other night. I had other actors, had other people around, and acting is reacting. When you're doing it in a booth, I have to basically act Patrick Stewart's part out in my head, see how he would be reacting, and then I react to that. So you have to be a little bit schizophrenic in those situations to make things work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I understand we do also have a video as well of what
Oh, that was
transpired
the
there.
mighty video with the Klingons singing the song of their people. Yes.
So let me see if I can pull this up. If you guys would bear with me. Let me see if I can get this up for us because it's pretty awesome. Um, Here we go. Let's see here.
Together we gather, proud Klingons, ready to sing the song of our people. And the one, and the two. I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and wise. Together we gather.
That's pretty awesome. Um,
Check those teeth out there. When you have to put prosthetic teeth in, doesn't matter what voice you've come up with before, you have to relearn how to speak when you put in prosthetic teeth because it's almost like ventriloquism. You have to make S sounds differently using your tongue at the top of the roof of your mouth as opposed to going through. It's very different. So it's a challenge.
Gotcha. And I'm glad that you dived into that because that's something that is always fascinating when we're just talking about voice acting in and of itself, and it always fascinates me is just getting into the art of that craft. As I mentioned at the top, you've done live action stuff and you've
Yeah.
also done voice work too, and
I
it's
mean, we're all storytellers, whether you're doing it in video games and voice, whether you're doing radio programs, whether you're doing television, film, on stage, improv, even writing or cartooning, which I've done. All of it is storytelling. At the root of it, that's who we are.
exactly. So, and speaking further to that, my question is in going into just your toolbox as an actor, right? And talking about those components that, you would bring to a live action character, I'm sure that there are some things that cross pollinate over into voice acting. However, just as you said, there are components of voice work that are kind of alien to live action where, you don't have that scene partner across from you. You kind of have to have it all in your head of how it may, go or how that interaction may go. So, can you
Other than
talk a bit
being in a
about
booth by yourself, it's very similar in some ways because for voice acting, you also have to be physical. You have to be physical. You have to have expressions. When you smile, you can hear a smile. When you frown, you can hear a frown. You can hear posture, whether I'm standing rigid or straight, or I'm hunched and I'm bent, or I'm feral. You have to physically inhabit the character, even when you're doing voice. It's all acting and it's 100% becoming the character. And that would translate over into video. That translates over to stage. It just depends. I mean, like on stage, sometimes you have to play a little larger to the back of the room so that
sure,
people
you
can
have to
see you.
project
But
or make
on film, if you raise an eyebrow, it might be a little too much. So, technique wise, you do change things up a little bit, but at the core of it, at the core of taking a bit of who you are and imbuing life into the character and making it real, that's the same whether or not you're doing film or you're doing voice in a booth by yourself or you're on stage or even improv. If you take it lightly, if you stand outside yourself and watch yourself perform, you're not giving the sense of immersion that people who are watching and you know hopefully enjoying the story will get into. They're not going to buy it as a story. They're going to see you as an actor. You never want to be seen as an actor. You want to be seen as a character.
Absolutely.
And for me, with video games, one of the things it does give me, and I try to do this with film as well, is disappear enough into the roles physically so that you won't know it's me. Like you won't know that that's me as the Klingon. You know, I play a character in a movie called Sanctuary that's going to be coming out, where I'm a really nasty piece of work, and my hair is darker and it's Nick Nolte'd out, and I'm basically I when I went to go to LA to go film, I got pulled aside by TSA and nearly strip searched because I looked like a suspicious type. You have to get so into it and become that character that for you the emotions are real, because if they're not real for you, they're not going to be real for the audience. And if you've ever watched a show where somebody is sort of phoning it in or giving you the surface and not taking it seriously, giving you a just they're just wrapping a little cloak around themselves but not coming from within themselves, you'll notice that you don't buy into the story as much. You see the actor, you don't see the character.
Absolutely. And in speaking of speaking further to that of trying to find the voice, because this part is always fascinating to me as well when speaking to anyone who does voice work, is everyone has their own process, right? Sometimes you're able to just put it together, just out of the ether, and you're just able to just find that voice. However, with sometimes for others, they may see a sketch of what the character looks like or what the character is going to look like, and sometimes that informs how maybe the voice might be. So can you talk a bit about it for yourself of what that looks like, um whether
Well,
it's
for case in point, Shea Gorath.
yes.
When I was given Shea Gorath, they weren't sure what they wanted with that. They wanted somebody who was a little more mercurial. They wanted somebody who could be funny but frightening. They said, we want someone who has sort of a stand-up energy and can go anywhere. And they gave me Robin Williams as an example. But I thought Robin Williams would be a bit too cuddly. You know, I'm the Daedric Prince of Madness, and my pants are baggy. No, I didn't think that would work. So I started thinking to myself, well, if they want a stand-up comic, who do I know who's a stand-up comic who is funny, but also brings a sense of danger, like you might be nervous around them? And who came to mind for me was the Scottish comedian Billy Connolly.
Mm,
And
okay.
so Billy Connolly kind of became my spirit animal for Shea Gorth, but it wasn't enough. I couldn't just do the Scottish, and I didn't want to just do an impression of Billy Connolly. I wanted him to be my spirit animal. But I thought to myself, well, he wouldn't be Scottish, would he? And he goes between mania and dementia. They gave me a week to think about this character, which was dangerous. They gave me extra time. So I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, he's got mania, he's got dementia, but what if I split him between the aisles? Half of him was Scottish when he was manic, when he was crazy, and then when the dementia hit, he became more lyrical and more Irish. So I split Shea Gorath between Irish and Scottish, depending upon his mood. But that still wasn't enough for me because he's neither. It's all affectation. So I thought, in a very few moments, I want Shea Gorath to drop it completely when he gets malevolent.
Mm,
And a case in point, if you go back to the brain pie line in Shivering Isles, and he's talking about, different things. And he's like, brain pie. There's a little bit of your Irish. Perfect. He goes into Scottish, and then he says, care to donate? And he drops it all. And what I like about going between the accents, going between happy, angry, sad in the same line, and going all over the place, is you don't know where Shea Gorath is going to go. And so it makes you nervous. Is he happy with you? Is he really going to rip out your intestine and skip rope with them? You know, is it just an affectation? Is he just saying it, or is he going to do it? And sometimes, in the middle of thinking about it and being funny about it, he decides he wants to do it because that's just the kind of off the hook, unchained kind of guy he is. He doesn't necessarily value life. He values his own, but he thinks of everything as a plaything. A case in point, the Wabbajack, which can turn something into a bunny or turn it into a giant monster that'll disembowel. So, buyer beware. And so I thought, if I can fluctuate between all these things and let Sheogorath go, and when I was in the sessions, I just let myself drift between each thing: the Scottish, the Irish, the manic, the mania, the malevolent, the light, and just kept him moving so you didn't know where he was going to go. So that dictated what his voice would be to me. And they didn't expect that. And from what I was told later, Todd Howard really wasn't expecting it, and he listened to it. And at first, he wasn't sure if he liked it or not. But the more he listened to it, the more he did like it, and the more it was like, all right, well, that's where we're going. And that's who Sheogorath became.
Awesome.
And, so you have to pull from within yourself. You have to decide who this character is. You have to decide what they want, where they come from. Remember, backgrounds for some people, histories, mean they're going to react to the exact same thing, the exact same stimuli, differently. Then you think about their physicality. Are they big? Are they small? Are they light? Are they fast? Are they slow? One guy who is one of my heroes is this guy right here, Mel Blanc, and that's his autobiography.
Yeah, of course, for sure.
His autobiography is That's Not All, Folks, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I loaned a copy of mine out. Turns out I loaned it to Mike Rawson, who does all the ghouls and things of that sort, and is a very funny guy, and we talk about these things. And he never gave it back to me, and I forgot that I'd given it to him, and I'm like, where's my book?
He owes you your book.
So I went, I didn't know who to ask. So I went on Amazon, and it's out of print, you see. So I went on Amazon to the used books, and there was one on sale there for $4.25. And it said, good condition. Unfortunately, someone has written in it. And I thought, oh, great. Well, I don't care. I just want to read, because inside this book, he talks about how he approaches building characters, how his story went, to have been alive in his period of time when you could go from radio show to radio show and be different people, then do cartoons and television. Mel Blanc was the very best. And so I get this book in the mail, and I open it up, and I find out who's been writing on the inside of it.
No way.
It's autographed by Mel Blanc. I have a friend named Phil, and he's like, that's my book. And I'm like, forget you, Phil. My book. So I don't know if you find one online that says writing in it. You never can tell. You may get somebody who decided to use, their kids decided to use it as a coloring book, or you can get Mel Blanc's autograph.
That's wild.
And he's not doing any more of them, He has a tomb out in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in LA. And on the headstone, it says, that's all, folks. His book says, that's not all, folks, but the headstone, the tombstone says, that's all, folks. And I went out there after a comedy show one time, and someone had given me a white rose opening night. And I was staying at this room, and I thought, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this rose. What am I going to do with this rose? One single rose. And I thought, I'm going to give it to Mel Blanc. So I went to give it to Mel Blanc, and I set it down in front of him, and I started talking. And I said, Mel, you're my hero, man. I mean, since I was a kid, listening to you, being every voice, every character, embodying these entire worlds, all I wanted to be was you. And I wonder if you were here today, what you might say to me. And at that moment, just outside, because you can hear the traffic on the other side of the big giant bushes that go up about 12 feet tall, I heard a novelty car horn go off that sounded like Speedy Gonzalez went ba 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 na 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 na, and goose flesh just jumped up on my arm, and I was like, Okay, great. Thanks, Mel. Nice talking to you. Got to go. Bye. You
Wow.
know,
No,
see,
that's
the thing is,
wild. Like just
yeah,
thinking of
when
like
loved ones
this.
pass, Brandon, we just say, wouldn't it be great if we could talk to them again? But if they tried to come and talk to us again, we'd never stop screaming. How annoying would that be for them?
I can't imagine. I mean, it's amazing, you bringing him up because there's been so many. Obviously, he's iconic and so many folks that he has influenced. So just to
Oh,
know
so many.
outside of you, of course, Billy West, talks about him a whole
Hmm.
bunch. Anyone who's not familiar, if you don't know who Billy West is, it's crazy that you don't. But if you don't, he does tons of voices.
Billy did
It's
stuff
like
for,
Futurama
yeah. And
and
before that, he was in radio in New York, and he worked for the Howard Stern show. He worked for a number of the
course,
people
yes.
there at NEW. He was there. I ended up working for a lot of those same people later, who kept saying, "I'm their Billy West," but it's like, no, I'm not. I'm your Wes Johnson.
There you
Billy
go.
West is Billy West,
Billy West.
and he's remarkable. I just love Billy, and I had a chance to work with people like Wolfman Jack.
Hmm.
That's right, baby. The Wolfman Jack. I worked with him for 2 years, man. And he never offered me a popsicle like he did in American Graffiti, man. Come on, they're melting. Fridge is broken. Have a popsicle, man. But he was just wonderful. I loved Wolfman Jack.
Well, I was going to say that probably weaves it, that uh, uh, actually weaves into my next question in talking about just finding a voice because I would have to imagine even with having that process right. A lot of times when you or maybe it doesn't happen for you, but I'm curious if it does, is as you're finding a new character, sometimes you have to check yourself and say, oh, wait a second. Like I'm weaving into this character that I've already done in my catalog. The only reason why I
You
ask that is
revisit,
because,
yeah,
you
you
know,
revisit
it's,
some ranges. You do. Like there
yeah,
are different vocal ranges. Like and sometimes they ask me to do it, you see. Like Mr. Burke. They wanted him to sound like Lucien LeChance. But what I did was I kept the chest voice, Lucien LeChance's chest voice, but he had a macabre sound to his voice, dear child of Sithis. And I removed that sort of affectation. And Mr. Burke had this voice, but it was more straightforward. I want you to blow that cesspool megaton off the map. And that's where he came from. And people are like, "Oh, he sounds like Lucy LeChan." Wes only has one voice. No, I don't. And even Hermaeus Mora. Hermaeus Mora is different in ESO that I'm voicing right now than he was in, say, Oblivion or Skyrim. In Oblivion and Skyrim, Hermaeus Mora had more of a lisp and some clicks and was very slow to the point where people wanted to gnaw their leg off because it was unskippable dialogue. But when we did ESO, it was all about the lore. And there was so much dialogue, they would have run out of time in the game. So we had to speed him up, but try to keep the lyricalness of him, take away some of the slurring, keep him so that he's recognizable as the same Hermaeus Moore I was doing, but change him up a bit. And this is a case where working with a good director can really help you. I've been working with DB Cooper. DB Cooper is a remarkable voice director. She and I she helped me coax me getting the new version of Hermaeus Mora out, and did him for Necrom, and doing him for the next chapter, which is coming up right around the 10th anniversary of the Elder Scrolls, which is what we're going to be celebrating in the first week of April, April 5th and 6th in Amsterdam. I get to go to Amsterdam with Bethesda Game Studios and with the Elder Scrolls Online, and we're gonna have a party. Are you coming, Brandon?
I'm gonna do my best, man. I'm gonna do my
Yeah,
best.
I mean, like Jules in Pulp Fiction says, "Oh, that does it. I'm going." When he found out all the things that were legal in Amsterdam, well, my wife has nothing to worry about because I'm a tired man these days. And you think about getting yourself into trouble for about 2 seconds, and then you're like, nah, Now, my biggest trouble I'm going to get in is I want to find myself a nice, hot, fresh stroopwafel made in the Netherlands. You ever had a stroopwafel?
I have not. I have not.
They're like a thin cookie kind of thing, shaped like a waffle, but there's two of them.
Okay.
They're very thin.
Okay.
They can be crisp. In the middle, there's caramel, a layer of caramel in between. Now, you can get stroopwafels in the store here. And what they do is they get a cup of
Okay.
tea or cocoa or coffee, and you set it on top of the cup, and it slowly warms the stroopwafel and makes it gooey and melty and all this. But if you go get one in the Netherlands, they're coming directly out of the oven with the melty caramel. They dip them in chocolate sometimes, a little half of it in chocolate. And it's supposed to be incredibly warm and tasty and decadent. So I want one. Oh, that does it. I'm going. So
Yeah, it sounds incredible, and I'm definitely a foodie. So like whenever it comes to anything new to try, um, you know,
yeah.
new to try food wise,
Well,
I'm down for it. So
I don't know why you're not coming next week with us on the King Kong cruise, man. Do you know
oh
John
well,
St. John who does Duke Nukem?
we will talk.
I've got
I will figure out
those.
a way. We will talk. I will
Yeah,
figure out a way. Um,
yeah.
but
Well,
go ahead.
great food.
Go ahead.
Great food, fish fries. The sad thing is, the day before you're out at this place called Coco Key near the
Mhm.
Bahamas, crystal clear water. You're swimming in the water, you're snorkeling. Fish are coming up to you, and they're like, sup. And you're like, sup. And you're communing with the fish. And then the next day you're in Nassau and you're going to the fish fry area to a place called O Andres. And there's a couple of red snappers on the plate, eyes open, looking at you like, sup. And you're like, no, supper.
So, and speaking of that, and speaking of like the technique that's utilized, obviously with that technique that has done you very well in accumulating the body of work that you have done thus far in your career, and with that, of course, comes opportunities to do shows that we know as Comic Cons, right? So I want
Yeah,
to get into
Awesome Con is one of my favorite shows ever, man. One of
which
my
is why I
favorite
wanted
shows.
to get into that, because I mean you've been a perennial guest,
Well, Ben
ever since
Penrod
season 6 one.
is Ben Penrod is great. Leslie Hunsinger, you know those folks, and
Yes,
everybody over at Awesome Con is just the salt of the earth and just about as kind and cool and nerdy as you want to be. And
yes.
that's the thing. Everybody's nerdy or wonky, geeky about something. We get teased since we were kids by "You're a nerd, you're a geek," and you know what? Yes, I am, and
Well,
I'm
we
proud of it.
all are in some
I
way. I
Yes,
mean,
but
people
they're
get
geeks about.
confused on
I
that.
mean, I'm a geek also about my sports. I'm a geek about my hockey. I'm a
Me
geek
too.
about
Me
football.
too.
Yeah, there are people
You
who are
could be a geek
geeks
about
about their
anything.
cars. Yeah, they're
Yes,
geeks about
you
their
could be a geek
cars.
about anything.
Yeah, they're geek. They're policy wonks. Don't get in a conversation with them. Policy wonks. They're nerdy and geeky about their politics. Avoid them at parties. Seriously, avoid them at parties.
Yeah, they will hold you there.
They are
You got
they
all
are
this
a
time to
monster that
pass. You're like,
Kolchak the Night Stalker. Yeah, Kolchak the Night Stalker would have run from them.
indeed, indeed, and in speaking, further to cons in and of itself. I wanted to briefly. I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but I feel like it's relevant considering that it's not that far off or not that long ago. And just going, briefly into pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and just
Yeah,
talking about how not only that affected, your craft, whether it's in live action or voice work, but how it also affected your interaction at cons. So, maybe there are some obvious things that come to mind immediately when we're talking pre-pandemic and
plastic shields
post-pandemic.
in front of you, mask
Right, right.
between you.
Or
People
working more
doing
from home with your voice
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
with
Well, the
your
voice
studio.
work, actually, that's helped people who don't live in LA
Yeah,
because now
yeah.
they want people to be on a studio and not come in. Keep your germs at home and use Source Connect in your own studio. I've got my big box right here. I jump in there, I plug in. I can be in LA, New York, Hong Kong, anywhere they're recording something. I can be there live with them. Technology has gotten to that point. And why not take advantage of the technology that's available? And they've started to do that now. I will say that being able to go out to LA, when I was in LA, and I've got an agent out there, and going and meeting some of the folks at Blind Light and Tommy and all those guys, going out to the Sunset Grill where they got a big statue of Lemmy, and we pose with the statue of Lemmy out there. And they have upstairs the room where the original Hollywood vampires used to stay. Do you know who they were? You
Okay.
had Alice Cooper, Keith Moon, John Lennon, Ringo Starr, uh, uh, I said John Lennon, yeah,
Yes,
Mickey
you said John
Dolenz.
Lennon.
All those guys were up there hanging out, and it's still up there with that red light in the black area. It looks like a vampire hangout in an attic. And it was very cool to go there and hang out there with Tommy and have a bite with some folks from Blind Light. Getting to know people at cons, other voice actors that you don't get a chance to meet because you're in a box or a booth, has been very beneficial. And in fact, we're doing our charity drive. We do our Voice of Palooza. Oh, there's Shea Gorath, Daedric, Prince of Madness. I dress up and wear the contacts for the epic photos at the cons, and Awesome Con was the start of that for me. Bring the actual Wabajack with me, and people love to get the Wabajack. And as you can see, I've got a Stanley Cup ring on there. There's Orlando Jones, who I actually was on a set with him for a month on The Replacements. So we got a chance to catch up, and he's just about as funny a guy and a fantastic actor. I hated that he ended up leaving American Gods because he was
Right.
awesome on there.
Right. Yeah.
He was awesome on that. And I wanted to see him do a Nancy Boys.
Yes.
I wanted to see him in that one.
For sure.
But who knows? Neil Gaiman might want to bring him back for something like that. But Orlando is wonderful. Got a chance to. Oh, there's Rachel Lee Cook holding on to my Wabajack. If Rachel Lee Cook wants to grab your Wabajack, you say yes.
Yes.
And she was there with all the Josie and the Pussycats, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Now that is a young lady by the name of Kat. I've seen her at a number of different things. She comes out and brings her a different cosplay every time, and the cosplays at Awesome Con sometimes can be breathtaking. You look at these people in the cosplay contests, and you think, "My God, how much time and effort went into that?" There's a friend of mine named Nishad, who took my voice acting class, and he always shows up wearing the creepiest things. If you saw him in a cornfield, you'd poop a little and run. But he's always dressing up in these amazing outfits. So I just love that. Years past, I've sort of done the Voice of God or hosted some of the cosplay contests. Couldn't this year because we had a Caps game on Saturday.
Right.
But I did Awesome Con. Then I got out of the building, went 3 blocks over to Capital One Arena and called a Capitals game, and then made my way back again. So it was a very busy weekend. March has been fairly busy.
And that's insane too, because I wanted to. We must be on the same wavelength, because that gets into my next question too, and that's just the idea of time management. I mean, so many times, like as a performer, you're doing multiple things, and you're called on to do multiple things. Whether if you're in live action, maybe you're doing multiple franchises at a time. If you are doing different mediums, you're doing live action,
And you're doing
doing
freelance,
work,
and you're
you're doing all
doing
these
sometimes
things.
a day job, because it's hard to make a living
Yes.
just doing acting or voice work. And but you keep things going. You absolutely do. And so, but in the meantime, what happens is you have to have 2 jobs sometimes. One that feeds the body and pays the rent, puts a roof over your head,
And one
that feeds the soul.
Yes.
Feed the body and feed the soul. If you don't do both of those, one's going to shrivel and die. This one a little more literally, but when your soul and your spirit and the inner child dies, what's the use of this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I tell people, I use the Galaxy Quest quote all the time: never give up, never surrender. Because if you want to do this, you have to love it. There's so much rejection, so much failure. And when you do get accepted for things, you're going to find that everything clusters and clumps at the same time. I've been telling people for months, beware the Ides of March, beware March, because it started at the end of February for me. I did Game Mason, which was great,
Yeah.
doing a video game. They did gaming challenges and e-gaming and things of that sort. So I made an appearance there. And then Awesome Con, which is just, I love Awesome Con. It's like my heart. And then, uh, I filmed Star Trek this weekend. And on next weekend, we're doing the video game voice actor cruise. I get to come home for 3 days, do a Caps game in the middle of it, and then hop on a plane and go to Amsterdam. And then when I get back, we're going to start the Voice of Palooza charity to raise money again for the Alzheimer's Association. And right now we've got over 40 different voice actors who agreed to do it. People like Matt Mercer and Tim Russ and everybody from Fallout franchise. We're doing radio programs again where people are reprising their original characters, and they do it because we're raising funds with fun. We've been doing it for a couple of years right now. So far, we have raised over $80,000 for the Alzheimer's Association in 2 years, and this year we're hoping to top 51 is what we had last year. We're hoping to top that this year, and we have hundreds of streamers around the globe. And maybe we can get you in on that, Brandon. Streamers who run their own streams and do their own charity fundraising, and it all goes into the pot that we use. Because I got to tell you something, gamers are some of the best people around out there. Get a bad rep from the press and people, oh, they don't care about nothing. No, they care about more than you think.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of good in this world. And when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, I lost my mother, I lost my grandmother, and everybody has a story. Everybody's a story of somebody they lost before they lost them. And when I asked these voice actors, I talked to Tom Kenny, he said yes. I talked to Steve Bloom, he said yes. We talked to Orlando, he said yes. All the people who came on our panel, our Voice of Palooza panel, we did at Awesome Con, which was so funny and so great. We had Yuri Lowenthal and Neil was there, Kaplan, and it was just wonderful. Colleen O'Shaughnessy and Tara Platt and um, oh, mm, everybody wants to do something. Everybody wants to help. We had Sean Bean who couldn't do it last year, but when I told him we raised 51,000, he gave me the biggest bear hug or hobbit hug you'd ever want to get from another man. It was actually quite comforting, Brandon. If Samwise gives you a hug, you have been hugged. But he did that because his mother went through it too, and we all have those moments. So when you do something like this and you raise funds with fun, you're really fighting back against something that leaves you feeling so very helpless. And right now, they've come up with some treatments that if they catch you early enough, they have some medication now that'll help keep someone themselves longer. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning. Figuring out what will keep them themselves longer and instead of slipping away. And eventually, the caregivers are the ones who end up having to be the keeper of the memories. I had to become the keeper of the memories for my mother and my grandmother. And when dementia hits, they can still tell a story. It just doesn't necessarily have the ring of truth to it all the time, but you let them go. It's kind of like they're saying in Animal House, the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, forget about it. He's on a roll. So, you let them go. You let them go. You let them have whatever moment it is, and then you try to bring them back in and hope that they can remember you. They remember your face the next time you see them.
For sure. And I want to thank those that are, currently watching live now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them. Don't be shy, but I appreciate, that you guys have been watching this time. But, to speak further, Wes, about, what on that same topic of, just that concept of protecting your time, just as I mentioned with all the things
well, there's so much to do. And You and I trying to find time to get to do this
But I'm
was
saying, like, just
I
just
want
a
to.
small component of being an announcer for the
Oh
Capitals, that's
yeah,
not a small thing, and,
no, it's
just
not a
the
small thing.
idea
Yeah,
of balancing the time, just as you gave an example of, balancing that and balancing, appearances, for the other, other things that you do, with what you've done in voice work, I'm just curious how have there been times where navigating between those things have
it
been
can be
tricky?
tough.
Because I
Yeah,
feel like this year, this hasn't been the only time, and I'm sure you're aware of this as being a perennial guest. This hasn't been the only time that Awesome Con has been, in essence, in the spring. We've had times where it's been
right.
in the summer. There have been times where it's been in the spring too. So, I'm
Depends on
sure
when
there
they
have been
can
other
get the
times where
convention
that's been an
center.
issue.
Yeah, it depends upon booking of the convention center, and they put it where they can, and we're all grateful to have it where we can. But it's finding the time to get things done. I mean, I'm going to miss a couple of Caps games to do both the King Khan cruise and to do Amsterdam. And
Gotcha.
I have somebody filling in for me for 3 games this season.
Got it.
So, but at a certain point with your schedule and to keep things rolling, people, they understand. Now, when you first start out, it's really hard because people, they're giving you opportunities and you're telling them I have other jobs or I have a day job or I have this and my schedule won't do it. They'll cut bait and move to somebody else. So it
Yeah.
can be very hard. It was much harder for me to say no in the old days. And it's hard for me to say no now to a lot of things. That being said, you have to get better at self care because if you don't take a little time to sleep, if you don't take a little time to see your family, if you don't take time to throw a blanket over your lap and let your dog sit on you like you're a pet futon,
Right.
well, you know, where's the quality of life? You're just doing the grind. So you have to try to protect yourself and you want to make yourself available. So when people say, what is your schedule like these days? They sometimes give you a couple of dates and you've got to put them in there. And if somebody wants something on the days that you're not going to be, I have to say, I'm sorry. I'd like to help you, but I'm booked. And it's like you and I talked about doing this next week, but I couldn't because I want to be in the middle of international waters.
Right.
And, who knows what's going to be happening out there. You could be talking to me in the middle of it. Somebody comes up and goes, I am the captain now. And it's, a terrifying experience for everybody, although it would be good viewing. Uh, but that's it. Protect yourself, protect your space, try to book as much as you can. Understand that sometimes things just may not happen. And breathe and know that the universe will give you what you need, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, just business wise, I would assume, like, when it goes into things like that, and if you don't want to share like these details, it's fine. But I am curious, and I'm sure a lot of other folks are curious. It's always fascinating to know things behind the scenes. A lot of it I do know, but some of it I'm still like ignorant of, and that's just the idea. I'm assuming, like, a lot of times when you are booking with a lot of these events, that perhaps there are clauses in there somehow where it's stipulating that type of thing of
Sometimes they want to
understanding
make you
I'm booked,
available.
but
Yeah.
this takes
There are some
priority of that
contracts.
type of thing.
There are some contracts where they say, well, you need to be available, but it's within a reasonable amount of time. They
Gotcha.
can't always just dictate and say, you will be here at this hour on this day because we all have things to do.
Yeah,
And whenever you're trying to book something, you know that, right?
absolutely.
It's like herding cats. It can be a little hard to control, but you can. Having too many good things to do is first world problems, and you just say, and here's the thing: if you have to tell somebody, I would love to help you, but I am booked, right? I'm
Yep.
booked that day.
Yep.
I'm booked. Can you give me another day? I'd love to help you. You have to, be kind, and but also stand up for yourself, right? Because you can't be in two places at once as much as you would like to be. You just can't. There's only so much to go around. My wife used to hand me books all the time. It was like, learn how to say no. you know, the magic word, no. So yeah, it made it difficult for me to do that, and I always felt like I would be letting somebody down. I don't like to let people down, but it got to the point where I don't feel I let people down, especially if I'm booked and I can't do it. It's a shame. I hate to not be able to be there for somebody, but if I'm booked, there's nothing more I can do. And you and I were able to find a time and be able to do this, which I greatly appreciate because this time was available and you're like, yeah, let's continue to do it. And I drove overnight, slept in a parking lot to make sure I could get here on time and do this thing, face
I'm
planted
about to say, mine, even regardless of face planning, you're still on here, which I
yeah,
appreciate.
you
So,
saw the picture, right?
yeah, guys, if you guys could see the condition that Wes was in after face planning,
Oh,
insane, insane. Looks like we have a couple of comments in here.
okay.
Last Tutin, I apologize if I'm butchering your name, but I guess you were
Rasputin.
commenting on what you were talking about before with the cause and saying, that
Oh yeah,
it's
Voice of
happening
Palooza
in the
and Fallout for Hope and fighting for the Alzheimer's Association. It's a very noble cause, and the day that we can find a cure is the day that I'll be a very, very happy man. And I'll be doing it in the name of my mother and my grandmother and my aunt who has it right now, and for every family who's ever had to deal with a loss like this before they actually lost their loved one.
And you have a student here. So it says, let's see here, see if I can get it up here. Here we say, good to see you here, Wes. Make sure to mention the classes best I've ever had. There you go.
Yeah, I do them through Theater Lab DC. If you go to Theater Lab, and it's TRE, theaterlabdc.org, you can put yourself on a waiting list because the next spring, I'm not doing the next semester. And I might do it in the summer. I may do it in the summer, but we'll see. It'll be the first time in several years that I have had a bit of a break from doing it. We're in the middle of a class right now. We get about 10 people. We have people from all over the world take this class because it's on Zoom and it's live. And it goes about 3 hours once a week for 6 weeks. And what we try to do is to get people to get past the point where they're reading, or it feels like they're reading, and they can bring actual life and bring the characters from within and use that little spark of their own soul and own experience to bring the character to life. Because that's what they talk about, bringing life to a character, not reading like you're reading to grandma or you're reading to kids. No, at the moment you're reading, it's a misnomer. You say, I'm reading a script. You don't want to sound like you're reading. You don't want to sound like you're acting. You want to become. You want to be. And that's what our class is about. Getting people to the point where they're a lot more comfortable with, one, their own voice, two, reaching in and finding those emotions. Because, Brandon, in this world, we shut ourselves off. We have these emotional restrictor plates in place because we never want people to see us angry or cry or sweat or in love or happy or too sad. Don't let them see you too sad. Don't let them see you too happy. Never show them your true face. But if you don't do that when you're acting, you're giving nothing. Our job is to tap into those emotions, to feel, so that the people who are watching and listening and playing the stories can feel. They have to believe you. In order for them to believe you, you have to believe yourself. And that's what my class is all about.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Wes, I want to thank you so much, as you had mentioned before, with the journey that you had traveling back here to be able to
Hey, it's
have
all a journey, Brandon. From the very beginning, as a young man starting off with nobody wanting to give me advice and just knowing I had a dream and what I wanted to do, never giving up, never surrendering, and all my friends thinking I was crazy, to keep banging my head against the wall, to keep going at it, to keep going. But the fact of the matter is, it's what I love. It's what I love doing. And if you spend your life doing something other than what you love because you're afraid, because you let the naysayer come in and tell you that you're not good enough, you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time. You might as well grab yourself a corner and sit in there and grow old, because the kid inside you is going to die. There's a kid that's vibrant and alive inside of me. The imagination is still there. And that is a playground that I love to go to whenever I'm voicing a character. It's magic and it makes me happy, and I hope it makes everybody else happy too.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, just to add to that, just the idea that I believe everyone, and I don't want to, I know we don't get too spiritual on here on this podcast,
Amen.
but I will say, just the idea that, I do believe everyone is given certain talents and gifts, so to speak, and to not share what that gift is or what that talent is, it's a waste to the world to not be able to experience whatever that talent and gift is that you
Yeah.
provide.
FDR once said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And that's true. Fear itself, the naysayer who's coming in. The naysayer is not somebody you want to bring along with you. The naysayer is never going to give you any fun. You take the naysayer out back and bury him in a deep, dark hole. And remember, love what you do, follow your heart, let your head set the directions, but always follow your joy, man. Always. You're
Perfect.
never going to succeed 100% of the time. You may not succeed 5% of the time, but as long as you're enjoying the journey, it's a success.
There you go. So I feel like that's a perfect way to wrap it up. Wes, thank you so much for hopping on. And before I let you go, just as I do with all of my guests, I want to give you an opportunity to tell folks where they can find you. And as you have been mentioning, you have some events coming up. So
Yep. Next week, going to be on the King Khan cruise. If you want to learn more about John St. John's epic video game voice actor cruise, you can go to King Khan Cruise, CON, cruise.com. That's going to be fantastic. Go check out Elder Scrolls Online and look up the 10th anniversary for Amsterdam. There may be some tickets still left available. If you want to go to Amsterdam, we'll get bikes and we'll go tandem. Cool. I've got Voice-a-Palooza coming up in May through Fallout for Hope. And if you want to learn more about that, if you're a streamer or a gamer and you want to join our stream team, you can go to voiceapalooza.com. There's the voice actor panel. Check that out. Alex Wilton Reagan, who plays Athelia, and Tommy Earl Jenkins, who's a Xander. I'll say about his. I'm honored to be spending time with the two of them on the voice actor panel. And Gina Bruno rocks. So we're going to have a great time there. But go to voiceapalooza.com. And as things get closer to May, you're going to find out all the wonderful events we're going to have. It's fun just to come in and watch all month long. Okay, there's going to be so many fun events with voice actors, panels, reunions, radio shows, a Voice-a-Palooza panel where we, do it like we do in the conventions, but doing it live online with your suggestions, building video games you've never seen before, and coming up, you write the lines, we say them in character voices. This is going to be a blast. So go to voicepalooza.com or look up falloutforhope.com. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Wes Johnson Voice. I'm at Wes Johnson on Instagram. Wes Johnson Actor on Facebook. And I think it's Wes Johnson Voice or Wes Johnson on TikTok for as long as that lasts.
Right. Well, there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Wes Johnson for hopping on. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, as it is now called.
No!
Formerly Twitter. And Brandon Choi _ENT on IG, on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon, guys.
Don't faceplant anybody. Don't recommend it. 1 star. Awful.